Welcome back to the Chelsweets kitchen. Today I'm making a super festive Christmas sweater inspired cake. This cake is made with some white velvet cake layers and I'm frosting it with a fluffy vanilla buttercream. So if you wanted to, you could totally do a red velvet for this cake too. I just figured since I was already using a lot of red gel food coloring for the frosting, I thought I'd keep the inside just kind of pure and all vanilla. So I began stacking my 4 cake layers. These are 7-inch cake layers, and I've trimmed the caramelization from both the sides and the bottom of the layers. Once my layers were stacked, I began to work on my crumb coat by spreading a thin layer of frosting around the cake. Once the entire cake was covered, I used my bench scraper to smooth my crumb coat, and I then popped the cake into the freezer for about 5 minutes to allow the crumb coat to firm up. Next, I added my second, thicker layer of frosting with some red buttercream. So this is the same buttercream that I used to fill the cake, but I added some red gel food coloring to it to give it this vibrant shade. One tip for getting really bright colored frosting is to make your frosting in advance, because as the frosting sits, the shade will deepen and it will give you more of a vibrant color that you're after. I used the same techniques to smooth my second layer of frosting, and if you guys want to see a full tutorial on smoothing a cake, you can click the link in the upper right corner. So like I mentioned earlier, the design for this cake is inspired by a Christmas sweater and has a lot of diamond patterns on it. So I used a square cutter, turned it sideways, and kind of made some imprints into the cake to help act as a guide as I piped my design. Once I had covered the cake, I also used a small heart-shaped cutter to add some more imprints since the pattern that I'm piping has a lot of hearts inside of the diamonds. So this step isn't necessary, but it'll definitely make it way easier to make sure that your design is evenly spaced and that you have even sizing around the cake. So next, I set to work on piping that design, and it took me a little bit of time to get comfortable piping this small of little dots. I really wanted it to look like it was a knitted sweater, and in retrospect, I wish I had used a piping bag filled a little bit less full. The larger piping bag you use and the more frosting that's in it, it's going to be harder to have control over your frosting tip. So don't follow this guide here. Definitely use a smaller bag and don't fill it as full. My hand got quite the workout, and I definitely took some breaks throughout this process, and this is absolutely sped up. It took me forever to pipe all of this on here. So once I had made my way all the way around the cake, creating that same design of some Christmas trees, some diamonds, and also, of course, those hearts, I began to work on the top part of the cake. So this design doesn't really naturally go up in this pattern, and so I had to get a little bit creative with how I made this flow together. But I ended up having all of the diamonds come together and just added some hearts to the top to create a fun finished look. And just like that, our knitted sweater cake is complete. So now it's time to cut in and show you those beautiful white velvet layers. I love how clean the inside of this cake looked. It's so white. It reminds me of just fresh snowfall on a winter day. And it really goes together in my mind with the whole sweater theme. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any ideas for future cakes you'd like to see, let me know in the comment section.